Hello, this is Philip Zimbardo in San Francisco, California. I am honored to be invited at the first, hopefully annual Iranian Social Psychology Congress by Fatima. I wish I was there with you, and hopefully someday I would love to be invited to your country, especially to visit your ancient Persian cities that I learned about when I was a child in history class. I also, when we get to the end of this presentation, will tell you about some research that is just being done using some of my ideas with Iranian vets. And I would love to come and work with clinical psychologists in helping introduce our time perspective therapy with vets who have PTSD and other people who have PTSD. So what I'm going to do today is take you on a journey into the world of time perspective. And I'm going to argue that time perspective is a paradox. It's something that's part of all of us. It influences all of our decisions, and yet most of us are unaware that we live in different time zones, in different biased time zones, that we overuse one time frame and we underuse others. And it influences everything we do. And in my talk, I will be presenting general ideas, cultural ideas, research-based ideas, and then we're going to end talking about my newest work that I have been doing with clinicians in Hawaii, converting time perspective theory into practical applications in clinical psychology, treating people with PTSD. So with that introduction, I hope you'll bear with me as we go on this timely journey. So the time paradox is that the most important decisions, that all of our decisions and actions that we take every day, little ones as well as big ones, are influenced by something inside of you, inside of me. And we are unaware that we have these time perspective zones in our heads. And I want to begin in a very strange place. I want to take us back to the Garden of Eden in mystical times. And this famous picture is a picture by a German artist, Lucas Cranach. And in it, it's the temptation myth. In it, it's Adam is being tempted by Eve in the Garden of Eden. And the serpent, who was Lucifer, who got kicked out of mythical heaven because he disobeyed God, has tempted Eve to take a bite of the apple. And God said they can do anything in paradise except take a bite of the apple, apple of all knowledge. And so I want to take us open by looking at the triad of Adam being tempted by Eve and also by the serpent. So let's tune into their discussion and imagine what it was like. So Eve says to Adam, "Come on, Adam, don't be afraid. I did it. You should take a bite of this delicious forbidden fruit. It's yummy. Take a bite, babe. You deserve it. Remember, you are God's perfect creature." And the serpent says to Adam, "Take one bite, Adam. Don't abandon Eve. You are the man. You are the only man. Don't be such a sissy. I am the serpent, Adam, and I say to you all of these things. So be a man." And what happens is Adam in this version is puzzled. He's a kind of simple guy. And he says, we might get in trouble with God in the future. But okay, I'll take just one bite, a small bite now. What the hell, what could happen? And when he does, obviously, he loses paradise, and at least in that Christian tradition, it's almost as if the evil begins to spread throughout the world by disobeying higher authority. So life is temptation. It's all about yielding, resisting, saying yes, saying no, now, later, being impulsive, being reflective. And it means some of us live a life being focused on the present, and others live a life focused on the future. Now, psychologists are beginning to understand willpower. Willpower is the ability to resist temptation. And there's always temptation all around us, whether big kinds of temptation for evil, and even small kinds of temptation, like, to eat sugary foods or salty foods, or we know that they're not good for us. And so how do we learn to resist these temptations? Well, a psychologist at Stanford, Walter Mischel, a colleague of mine, many years ago, did a little interesting demonstration that I want to share with you. He tempted 4-year-old children. He played a game with them, and they won the game. And individually, he told each one that the prize was a marshmallow, that they could eat this marshmallow now, but if they waited for him to come back, they could have 2 of them. So obviously, and then he leaves the room for a period of time. Now obviously, if you like marshmallows, it makes sense to wait. However, the marshmallow is there as a visible temptation. And so, so the question is, do you want immediate gratification, or do you learn how to delay gratification? Now, I redid the study recently in San Francisco with 4 and 5-year-old children. I played a game, as you'll see, with some puppets. I called the shy puppet and not shy puppet. The children won it, and the marshmallow was the prize. And now we're going to see what happens when I leave the room. Do children wait to get 2, or do they give it to temptation and take 1 now? And what's interesting is what they do to deal with this temptation, how they distract themselves. So let's look at temptation in action. Come in and have a seat here. Sit right up. Okay. Now, I'm going to play a game with you, and I would like you to point to which one is the correct answer. Which one is happy most of the time? The shy one or the not shy one? Not shy one, correct. Which one has a brown nose? The shy puppet or the not shy puppet?
The not shy puppet.
Point it. Thank you. I'm sorry, stop that. Which one is happy most of the time? The shy one or the not shy one?
Probably that.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I want to give you a prize for having done so well. Do you like marshmallows? You do? Well, here's a marshmallow for you. You can eat it now, but if you wait until I come back, you can have 2 of them. So you can eat this now, but I'm going to go outside for a minute. When I come back, you can have 2 marshmallows if you wait.
Okay, I'll wait.
Do you think you can wait? Okay, let's see. I'll be back in a minute. See? So we actually tested 10 children in a preschool nursery. So she knows her hands are the devil's work, because they're going to pick up that marshmallow. So she's dancing. She's going to play the piano, distracting themselves from just picking it up and eating it. But she really wants that marshmallow. Smelling it, almost licking it. Pulling it a little closer. Hello? You waited. You waited for me. Okay, so now, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get a double treat. I'm going to give you 2 of these lovely marshmallows. You want to eat them now, or save them for later? Okay. She wants to eat it now. Little sticky.
I've had marshmallows before.
She said, I had marshmallows before. Now, while some children waited, other children just ate it. You got it right. So we're going to look at 2 children who could not resist.
I'm going to give you a treat. The treat is a delicious marshmallow. But if you wait, I have to go check my car. When I come back, if you wait, you can have 2 of them. You can have 1 now, or when I come back, you can have 2. Okay? Okay.
I think she waited 1 minute. Then she's going to eat it in 2 bites. just in case I come in to take it back.
Hello, my dear. You ate the marshmallow. Was it delicious? Do you like marshmallows? You don't like marshmallows?
Now, he's a really funny
you like
kid.
Chocolate? Okay.
I was ready with the chocolate.
The treat you have won is a chocolate. But, if you wait till I come back, you can get 2. You can eat this now. I have to go check my car. And when I come back, if you wait, I'll give you 2 of them.
Okay.
So you can eat it now, but if you wait till I come back, you have 2. Okay? You think you can wait? Okay. So I will be back in a few minutes. So you can eat it now, but if you wait, you're going to have 2 of them.
I say it 4
I'll
times.
be back soon.
I'm not even out of the door. Every time I see this, I'm not even out of the door. He's already gotten eating it. And obviously enjoying it. And the big question is, what will he say when I come back and confront him with the fact that he ate the chocolate and didn't wait?
Hello, I'm back. How are you?
I waited.
No, you ate it. You ate the chocolate.
So what he did was to say, I waited, I didn't leave the room. So he interpreted the whole situation in his favor, that he got the 1, and now he asked me, give me 2 more because I didn't leave the room. So you know this kid is going to be in trouble. That is, he's not going to use the authorities' view of reality. It's going to be his own. So the big question is, what difference does that make? You know, that simple decision to wait or not, to delay gratification or not, we think it's just a minor decision. It turns out it has enormous consequences.
You may already be familiar with the famous marshmallow study conducted by my colleague, psychologist Walter Mischel, in which a group of 4-year-olds were given 1 marshmallow and told they were allowed to eat it immediately. They were told that if they could wait to eat the marshmallow after being left alone with it for a while, then they would be given an extra marshmallow to eat. Most eat the marshmallow as soon as they are left alone with it, but some other children are able to resist temptation. Those children who ate the marshmallow right away are considered to be oriented toward the present, while those who resisted temptation have an orientation toward the future. When the children were interviewed years later as 18-year-olds, there were amazing differences between the children who were able to delay gratification and those children who couldn't resist the immediate temptation. Scored 250 points higher on the SAT, overreacts to frustration, works well under pressure, indecisive, self-reliant and confident, prone to jealousy and envy. The marshmallow experiment is a classic study of how a person's ability to delay gratification, even at the age of 4, can predict many significant future outcomes. But what does this have to do with you? A lot. In my new book, The Time Paradox, you'll learn how your own relationship to time plays a significant role in your personal happiness. Whether you're looking for a better understanding of the world at large, from religion to politics to business to national destinies, or want a deeper understanding of yourself, The Time Paradox teaches you how to recognize your own attitudes toward time and how your everyday decisions are influenced by your personal time orientation. And it will help you overcome the hidden mental biases that keep you too attached to the past, unhealthily obsessed with future goals, or too focused on immediate gratification. You can improve your personal success, happiness, and psychological health. The Time Paradox will show you how. It's only a matter of time, making time work for you.
So, for parents and teachers, one of life's most important lessons is teach your children, teach your students to delay gratification. Teach them to say no or later to temptation. But really, it's teaching everyone that your present behavior has future consequences. So what is time perspective? It's really the study of how each of us divides our personal experiences into time zones or time categories. We do it automatically. We do it unconsciously. These frames vary between cultures, between social classes, between nations, and between people. they become biased because we learn to overuse some and we don't use others very much or not at all. Now, I think it's a foundation. It's one of the most basic foundations of human nature, that you can't have achievement needs without being future-oriented, to think in terms of causal links, if-then, to have sense of hope. You need a future orientation. Guilt, revenge, really is bringing the past into the present. To be impulsive, on the other hand, to improvise, to like the novel things, means you have to live in the present to some extent. And as we'll see as I go through the presentation, much more of our behavior is influenced by our time perspective. So here's a simple conceptual model. You have to make a decision, you have to take an action, and it could be from small things to really big things. Anything in your life which is important for you. So what are the influences? For some people, it's only things in the immediate situation. Your biology, your physical status, whether you're hungry or not. What people around you are saying or doing. If it's about an object, what it smells like, looks like, tastes like. And if that's the only thing that influences your decision, we're going to call you present-oriented. On the other hand, there are people who can ignore all of that and focus on memories of the past. When was I in this situation before? What did I do? If it worked, I'll do it again. If it didn't work, I'll try something different. We're going to call those past-oriented. A third category of people are people who can ignore the past, ignore the present, and focus on anticipated consequences. What's the gain? What's the risk? What's the cost? And those people are going to be future-oriented. Now, I'm going to talk about these people as if they were types, but in fact, as you'll see, everybody has a degree of each of those. So that, but the past and future are abstract. They exist only on memory. We create the past and future. The present, however, is empirically concrete. And as I said, each of these is on a continuum of having more or less rather than all or none. So, I'd love you to go online, www.thetimeparadox.com, and you can take the scale that I developed, I'm going to talk to you in a minute, and immediately find out the extent to which you are past, present, or future-oriented. So there are 6 main time perspective factors. There are 2 in the past, 2 in the present, and 2 in the future. For some people, they focus only on the good things in the past, success, wonderful experiences, family values. Other people, when they think of the past, focus on the negatives. Failure, regret, abuse. There are 2 ways to be present-oriented. To be a hedonistic means you like novelty, you like new things. You like pleasure, you're seeking pleasure, avoiding pain. Other people are present-oriented, present fatalists. They believe that it doesn't pay to plan. Your life is fated. Fated by your religion, by Allah, fated by your poverty, fated by the fact that you live in a nation at war, for example, fated by sometimes economic conditions, where you're in a country that has high inflation, that limits your access to food, to basic resources. To be future-oriented means you're the kind of person who sets goals, has an agenda, plans ahead, but you can also be future-oriented, depending on your religion, where you believe that your life really begins after the death of the mortal body, because that's your spiritual body. And so depending on some religions, we call this transcendental future, that you live your life so that when you die, you will go to heaven rather than hell or some other place. So that there are many reasons we become each of these. So geography, climate effects. If you live near the equator, you tend to be more present-oriented because you live in an environment where the weather never changes. So psychologically, you don't ever plan for change as you do if you live in a temperate zone. Culture. Some cultures focus on more of the future or the present. So in general, around the world, Protestants tend to be more future-oriented than Catholics. Catholics tend to be more perhaps future-oriented than Muslims. So that links culture and religion. Social class. The more if you're middle class, you got there by being future-oriented. If you're poor, it's the curse of being present-oriented. One of the things education does is it moves present-oriented children, impulsive kids, to learn how to delay gratification, become more future-oriented. But again, as I said, to be future-oriented means you trust in people. You trust when you delay gratification, the authority is going to come and give you two rather than say, sorry, you know, I ate them or somebody stole them. So you have to trust in adults. You have to be able to trust in your parents. You have to trust in your government and society. So, as I said earlier, one of the reasons Protestants are more future-oriented is really the whole notion that Calvinism promoted the notion that your success on earth is an index or a sign that you'll be successful in the afterlife. So it encouraged Protestants to develop a Protestant ethic, to work hard, to delay gratification, to resist temptation. And it was really, it's been seen as by sociologist Tawney as the basis for the rise of capitalism around the world. So again, in business, time is the most essential factor. Everything, because time is money. As I saw in this ad in some business window of some business company, Merrill Lynch actually. This is a funny cartoon. Einstein discovers that time is actually money. And what's curious, we think of time, psychological time, as a commodity. We think about saving it, spending it, wasting it, but always not having enough, always having not enough of it, as if time were a thing. So I developed a scale called the Zimbardo Time Perspective Inventory, ZTPI. It's 56 items, and it gives you a profile of 5 factors that I described before. There's a separate scale for transcendental future. So again, as I said, if you go on the website at Time Paradox, you can take the test and get your scores. We've just finished a study of 24 different nations, and what we've discovered that across nations in 4 different continents, I guess in South America, in Asia, in Europe, in North America, there are 36 of those items that are universal, that despite culture and language differences, people respond to those 36 items in the same way, in a varying way. So let's quickly look at the correlations when we were developing this scale of each of the 5 time perspective factors and a variety of other psychological, social phenomena. Now, you know correlations go from +1, meaning there 2 things are perfectly related, to 0 where there's no relationship, to -1 where it's inverse. The more of one, the opposite happens, the less of the second thing. In psychology, in personality psychology, the biggest correlations are usually 0.2, 0.3. And if you have a large sample, it's significant. What is amazing, what I'm going to show you very quickly, is the correlations using the Zimbardo Time Perspective Inventory are robust, are enormous. So for example, let's start with people who are high on future orientation. They are extremely conscientious. The correlation is 0.70. They also prefer consistency. Correlation is 0.6. They have ego control, 0.5. And what's negative is they don't seek sensation, and they're not aggressive. And this is on a sample of 205 students. So the reason the future-oriented people tend to be most successful is what they say is, I'm able to resist temptations when I know there's work to be done. Now, why is that important? A recent investigation of 20 different meta-analysis, 20 different studies with nearly 9,000 people in 6 different nations measured conscientiousness differently. What they found is that people who are high conscientious live at least 2 years longer than people who are low in conscientiousness. What does that mean? It means that we know that future-oriented people tend to practice positive health behaviors in terms of eating, in terms of exercising, in terms of getting dental medical checkups, and they minimize risk. They wear seat belts when they're driving. They don't do dangerous things with biking and just dangerous things in general, and that's why they live longer. So, to be future-oriented means you can live up to 2 years longer if you're also conscientious. So let's look at what it means to be past positive. Your correlations with happiness, with self-esteem, with friendly, a little bit of energy. It's negative. Low on anxiety, low on depression, low on aggression. So generally a very good thing. What's bad about being past positive is you want things that are familiar. So you don't want new friends, new family, new friends, new food, new experiences. But those are generally good. Let's look at what it means to be present hedonistic. The two main characteristics are you seek novelty and you seek sensation. Again, the correlation is 0.70. There's no correlation in psychology higher than that. You have energy. However, there's a degree of aggression, but you also tend to be creative. That is, and creativity means improvisation. What's the negative? Ego under control, minus 0.75. You don't care about consistency, you don't have impulse control, you're not conscientious, means you're going to die younger, and you have low on emotional stability. Let's look at the next factor. So the mantra of present-oriented people is, I do things impulsively, making decisions on the spur of the moment. So this is sex, drugs, rock and roll, which was, in America, the orientation of the youth in the 60s and 70s. And now we're going to look at two factors which are almost always totally bad to have. If you're present fatalistic, again, meaning you say, it doesn't pay to plan, I have no control over my life, you're high in aggression, you're high in anxiety, and you're high in depression. That's a terrible triad, and the correlation is 0.4 to 0.5. Again, negative relationships, you have no concern for future consequences of your behavior, minus 7. Ego control is low, self-esteem is low, conscientiousness is low. Equally bad is if you're past negative, trait anxiety is 0.75. That is the highest correlation of any two measures that I know in all of psychology. I mean, if we measure your intelligence a month apart, I think it's 0.75. Depression very high, aggression very high. But now negative, low self-esteem, minus 60, low emotional stability, low impulse control, and you're not happy. That's a very, very sad profile. And really, it's a danger alert. What it really means is, if we gave this scale out to the general public, we gave this scale out in schools, in high school, even middle school, that children who scored high on this, there'd be a reason to have intervention, meaning a counselor should be talking to you, should be finding out what's wrong and how you could be helped. So scoring high on past negative and high on present fatalism, for people who are functioning college students or high school students, or if you're middle class, doesn't make sense. And therefore, it's diagnostically predictive of an adverse outlook. And you should be receiving preventive, remedial strategy in school, work, counseling if you're working, in human relations. So, in some cases, for a poor person, this picture captures this African American, or I guess it's South American mother who's present fatalistic. She's given up, especially if you're a single mother with no husband, low income. And the child still can be present hedonistic, can enjoy the moment. Now, there's another way to be present-oriented, and that's called a Zen holistic expanded present. So this is what you get from meditation, from what you get from focusing on the immediate present. So it's not hedonistic and it's not fatalistic. So in the Sanskrit, it is written, yesterday is already a dream, and tomorrow but a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. So it's really a wonderful focus to have. Buddha tells us, do not dwell on the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate your mind, on the present moment. So the question is, how did we learn to live in the moment? It's easy to say, and it's really important that, as it turns out, one of the consequences of being mindful, of being present, focusing on the present, in this expanded present, is really good for your mental and actually your physical health. So I'd like to review what we've set up to now and end with some speculations. So I recently gave a similar talk in London at the Royal Society of Arts, and they edited my talk to 10 minutes, took the oral part out, and gave the rest of it to 3 artists who made an animation. It's very creative. It's really, some of it is I still love to see it. I learn new things from it each time. So I want to summarize it, have you look at this, and then we'll talk about some new ideas about how time perspective can be tested in different countries and how the impact it has on research.
So what we have discovered in 30 years of research, there's 6 main time zones that people live in. 2 focus on the past, 2 on the present, and 2 on the future. The people who focus on the past either remember all the good old times, successes, happy birthdays, nostalgia. These are the people who keep the family record, the family books, who have the family rituals. There are other people who focus only on regret, only on failure, only on all the things that went wrong. So we call those focus past positive or past negative. There are 2 ways to be present-oriented. The most obvious is to be hedonistic, that you live for pleasure and you avoid pain. You seek novelty, you seek sensation. There are other people who are present-oriented because they say, it doesn't pay to plan. My life is fated. Fated by my religion, fated by my poverty, fated by the conditions that I'm living under. Most of us are here because we are future-oriented, that we have learned to work rather than play, to resist temptation. But there's another way to be future-oriented. Depending on your religion, life begins after the death of the mortal body. To be future-oriented, you have to trust that when you make a decision about the future, it's going to carry out. If you have great inflation, you don't put money in a bank because you can't trust the future. If there's instability in your family, adults can't keep their promises to you. The closer you are to the equator, the more present-oriented you are. The more you're in an environment where climate doesn't change, it gives you a set of imagining sameness rather than change. Protestants everywhere have higher gross national product than Catholic countries, in part because of the Protestant ethic, because of the notion that you work hard to succeed, to demonstrate that you are God's chosen people. My family comes from Sicily, and in Italy there is a political movement called La Liga to cut Italy in half, to have North Italy and South Italy, cut it just below Tuscany. The people in the North say, we do all the work. The people in the South are lazy, they're like children. They want to have babies, have 3-hour dinners, etc. People in the South say, they're not Italian, they're German and Austrian. You know. They eat yogurt instead of pasta. They take their lunch in a paper bag. And in the recent election, the Liga got 14% of the national vote. It turns out, it is accurate. We've done research to say people in the North tend to be, on a scale much more future-oriented. People in the South tend to be more past-oriented or present hedonistic. And so my family is Sicilian, and I come from Sicily. I go back every year. I started educational foundation. We sent high school kids to college and set up computer labs. And I'm talking about some of this stuff, and a man comes up and says, I'm a poet. I live with words. It wasn't until I heard you talk that I realized there's no future tense verb in Sicilian dialect. I said, what do you mean? There was, is no will be. He said, that's why nothing gets done. And I didn't realize it because we never planned. So again, here's how when you have a number of people who share a certain time perspective, then it does come to characterize the nation. The same way, if you have a Catholic nation where people tend to be present or past-oriented, rather than a Protestant nation where in general people tend to be more future-oriented, it affects you in very profound ways. So there's a wonderful book called The Geography of Time, and it's written by a dear friend of mine, Robert Levine, who's a social psychologist, and he actually literally went around the world doing wonderful experiments. He looks at what he calls the pace of life. See, time perspective is how people divide their own experience into partitions, time zone. Another kind of time orientation is your sense of duration. How much time has expired while you're sitting in a dentist's office before they start drilling? How much time has expired when you've been waiting in line? How much time has expired when you're having fun or upset? So time duration is totally a function of whether you're bored, whether you're excited or not. And what he does is he shows that in different cultures, people have a different pace of life. And you do this very simply. You sit in a cafe and you mark off 100 meters, and as people pass, you start a stopwatch. And you see how fast people walk. You go to a post office, and on a piece of paper you say, I'd like, 3 pounds of this postage or 10 euros, and you see how long it takes. So he has a bunch of these measures. And it turns out you can identify cultures as a different pace of life, and now cities. And he shows in America, you can rank 60 cities according high pace of life and low pace of life. And the ones that have the highest pace of life, men have the most coronary problems. That is, this becomes part of your whole way of life. We all begin life as present hedonists. All of us. I mean, at the breast, at the bottle, we want pleasure, we want to avoid pain. And one of the things that families do, and especially school, my sense is the purpose of schooling is to take present-oriented little beasts and make them more future-oriented. Some cultures make them more past-oriented. In America, a child drops out of school every 9 seconds. This is worse for kids from a minority background, and it's worse for boys than girls. There's actually a disaster recipe developing among boys in America, literally dropping out of high school, college, and it's not simply poor performance. One of the problems is, a recent study shows that by the time a boy is 21, he has spent at least 10,000 hours playing video games alone. Probably more watching pornography alone. And you put that together, it means A, they haven't learned social skills, emotional, social intelligence, but also it means that they live in a world that they create. They're playing Warcraft, they're playing these other games, which is exciting. In fact, I just heard the other day that these game companies are now going to develop 3D games so that the world will be all around you. Their brains are being digitally rewired, which means they will never fit in a traditional classroom, which is analog. Somebody talks at you without even the nice pictures, meaning it's boring. I mean, you control nothing. You sit there passively. And if you want to change the curriculum, I understand the traditionalists here say we got to go back to reading, writing, arithmetic. Disaster. These kids will never fit into that. They have to be in a situation where they are controlling something, and school is set up, you control nothing. You're passive. School is all about learning delay of gratification, literally endlessly. All addictions are addictions of present hedonism. Food, sex, drugs, gambling, etc. All of our propaganda, all of our educational message, all our public relations messages are designed for future-oriented kids, who's not the problem. They tell you, here's the negative consequences of doing what you're doing. Future-oriented kids know that, and they don't do it. Present-oriented kids know the future consequences. If you're a teenage girl, you know that if you have unprotected sex, you're likely to get pregnant or have sexually transmitted disease. You know it, but that knowledge never feeds back to change your behavior. So that's the interesting thing about time perspective. I think we are underestimating the power of technology in rewiring young people's brains. Kids don't wear wristwatches. They say it's a single function device. You don't waste time with a single function device. And they live in a digital thing. What matters is the second. You know, I didn't mention one of the things that gets people upset in America is how long it takes to boot up your computer and how long it takes to download something. Less than a minute. That makes people angry. So it becomes an emotional thing. You get angry waiting in line, waiting for services. Waiting is a waste of time, even if it's waiting for your computer to boot up. So I think there's a fundamental change going on in our culture that I think we adults are not realizing, that kids are totally different than we were.
So I hope you'll make the extension of these ideas to your culture, see where they are apply, and where they may be somewhat different. So I want to just quickly go through now. There's been a lot of research on time perspective related to various behavioral outcomes. I'm just going to present several of these. So for example, in my class at Stanford, we give our scale. Students take objective multiple choice tests. And the kids who get the highest grade at Stanford, where all the kids start off really smart, are future-oriented. Stanford kids who are present hedonistic get low average scores. Those few who are present fatalistic get the lowest scores. So time perspective bias influences grades, and it's really independent of intelligence. Other research we did is we wanted to know, does time perspective influence how you solve puzzles, how you solve mazes? And we had present-oriented students at Stanford versus future-oriented ones. We had males and females, and we gave them puzzles to solve. And we had, both, as I said, men and women, present, future. We gave them puzzles to solve, like this one or like this one. So a puzzle is all about going from the present to the goal is a future, and we say begin. And what happens is, if you're present-oriented, you begin immediately. That you just start going, and you get stuck and you get frustrated. If you're future-oriented, what do? You don't begin. You begin by looking. You focus on where's the goal, where are you, what are the cul-de-sacs, and when you begin, you're more likely to finish, succeed. So when we look at the relationship of time perspective to problem solving, at Stanford, 90% of the students were able to solve the maze in a fixed period of time, compared to only 60% who were present-oriented. That difference of 30% is enormous, enormous and highly significant difference. And that's the difference that time perspective makes, independent of intelligence. So who smokes, takes drugs, drinks alcohol? Here we did a large sample study of over 1,200 students at Stanford and at Cornell University, which is in the east coast of the United States, both high schools with relatively high-level students. We gave them scales of alcohol use and risky driving. We divided them into present and future. We also looked at separately males and females. And what we get in general, I'm just going to go very quickly, is males at Stanford are like males at Cornell. If you're present-oriented, there's high correlations between alcohol use and being present-oriented, high correlation between risky driving and being present-oriented, and the reverse, negative correlations if you're future-oriented. And the interesting thing is women were identical to the men. So women who are present-oriented, again, drink alcohol to excess, do binge drinking, take risk driving a car, risk driving bicycles, don't wear seatbelts, and so forth. Now, if we go out of the classroom into the real world, we studied, Petri et al. Studied heroin addicts versus controls. These are hospitalized. We gave them our scale. Heroin addicts are significantly more present hedonistic, much more present fatalistic, lower on future, and actually no difference in past. And the differences on hedonism, fatalism, and future are significant beyond the 0.01 level. And again, this has implications for not only becoming addicted, but in terms of trying to treat the addiction. Guess who takes risks? In general, people who take risks are present-oriented people, and we've studied this from high school kids through college and beyond. So time perspective, I said, is a foundation for our emotions, motives, and actions. What's good about being past-oriented is you're more happy, you have high self-esteem, you believe in rituals, you're patriotic for whatever country you're in, you have a sense of nostalgia, gratitude, you have a sense of stability because you understand your identity within your family and over generations. It's the wisdom of the elders, and also you have a sense of identity and personal stability. If you're present, the positive thing about being present, you build affiliation, you belong to lots of groups, you take joy in life, you take a lot of pleasure, you're very sensual, you're very sexual, you have a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, and you're very creative if it comes to improvisation, because what? You're always doing the new thing. Problem is, you don't want anything familiar. If you're future-oriented, this is your achievement focus, your health focus. You do contingency planning, you think in terms of probabilities, have a sense of self-efficacy, I make things happen. You always do a cost-benefit analysis. You don't do things where the cost is greater than the benefits. You have expectancies, and most of all, this is where hope is. Now, however bad it is, if you're future-oriented, you have hope that things will get better. On the other hand, what's bad about being past-oriented is that's where trauma lives, that's where guilt lives, that's where that's where depression comes from. At a national level, you want revenge, retaliation against things that were done generations ago, even hundreds of years ago, against the national enemy. What's bad about being present-oriented is you're at risk for all addictions. You take risks. You tend to be more violent. You tend to have anger. And you believe in gambler's luck. The main people who gamble, and gamblers always lose in the end, are present-oriented people. And this is especially true of a certain nation. For example, among Chinese, there's very high level of gambling, believing that next time they will be successful, but the rule is the house always wins. What's bad about being future-oriented is there's a negative future. There's anxiety, there's worry. Maybe you won't be able to achieve. And the more, for many present-oriented, future-oriented people, they become workaholics. They work all the time. They don't play. So they become socially isolated. They become competitive. And for many men, even sexual relationships are a performance. So there's performance anxiety, which could lead to male impotence rather than male productivity. So I want to switch now. The last part of the talk is looking at using time therapy to cure PTSD. Now, PTSD is among many veterans in America, in Iran, other places who suffered, but also other victims of trauma, women who've been raped or abused. Now there's, because of global climate change, there are natural disasters around the world. And lastly, and people who've been in fatal car accidents. That's actually one of the biggest percentage of people having PTSD. That is, you've been in an accident where you killed other people with your car, or people have been in your car where they died and you didn't. And also patients recovering from cardiac surgery. So, PTSD, anxiety, depression. You have high pass negative, low pass positive, high or low present hedonism, high present fatalism, no future time perspective. 30% of all U.S. vets, and that's hundreds of thousands, suffer from PTSD, and there's really no effective cure. So time therapy is a therapy based on the ideas I've been talking about, developed by two psychologists in Maui, Hawaii, Rick and Rosemary Sword. It's a therapy of the future. It focuses on achieving a brighter future rather than balancing the negative past. It focuses on the importance of time and how we take time for granted, why we should learn to appreciate the role of time perspective in our lives. So this is Rick Sword, and you begin by respecting the trauma, to say, we know you suffered, we know you did bad things, especially if you're a soldier, you've killed, or you've seen killing. In some cases, you've seen rape, you've seen abuse, or you've done terrible things. So we respect that. However, you have chosen to be stuck in the past. And as long as you keep that choice, no one can help you. However, so it's really metaphor narrative. Now, we imagine you have one foot stuck in the past, mud of the past negative, the other foot stuck in the mud of present fatalism. If you choose to put one foot out of the negative mud of the negative and the solid soil of future, and the other one the solid soil of past positive. And then we figure out how to promote present hedonism selected as a reward. So this is a kind of image that we show them, we talk about. So the therapy is really more coaching, rather than, it's coaching, didactic, the patients, clients actually do homework, and they really learn time perspective theory. So the study that we've just completed was 27 vets who had PTSD. We had pre-post measures. These were mixed ethnicities. This is in Hawaii, some of these Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, from many, many different wars, as you can see. The average age was 63, so these are fairly old. But our treatment, I'm going to say in advance, was very successful in only 8 sessions. Okay, and one of the problems with PTSD is it leads to a high level of suicide. Not one of our patients, not one of our clients even attempted suicide in 4 years. So they all took a whole series of scales: Burns Anxiety Inventory, depression, post-traumatic diagnostic scale, and other measures. And what we find is that within 1 year, 89% of the veterans we treat had significantly less depression, 70% had less anxiety, and 14% had fewer PTSD symptoms. And we measured these vets over 4 years, and those effects endured for every year over the past 4 years. And so I wrote a book with Richard Sword and Rosemary Sword called The Time Cure, Overcoming PTSD with a New Psychology of Time Perspective Therapy. I presume it's not available in your country, but I can send a PDF version to you that you can distribute. And I would just want to mention that when I was in Istanbul at the European Congress of Psychology, I actually spent some time with a number of Iranian students. One of them was Marjan, who actually has been a student I've been mentoring. And she now is working as a mental health assistant, I think in something called the Veterans Affairs. And she just sent me results just the other day showing that in research that she's doing with a colleague, that vets, Iranian vets, who are undergoing methadone treatment, significantly reduce their present fatalism to become less fatalistic and more optimistic. And again, these are measures pre and post. And thus, from my point of view, they are more open to treatment to change their PTSD. I hope, again, as I said earlier, to be invited to Iran to introduce time therapy to the Veterans Affairs Program and to vets and other people who could benefit. So lastly, our time perspective is going global. There are 24 translations and more on the way. I work with more than 50 researchers around the world. We meet annually at international conferences. We interact by email and Skype. And everyone using our scale in every country are getting highly significant results. And many of these are not just academic results, but have practical applications. So here's our first team. And again, these are from, every single one of these people is from a different nation around the world. And so we have just published our first article in Sage open source of 24 country study of the equivalence of the time perspective inventory in all these countries. So in addition to these senior authors, and I'm the last of them, 50 other people participated in this research, and we get their names in as well. There's, in addition to the time paradox, we're developing a website. I think it's called timeorientation.com, but I can follow up, or Fatima can contact me to find out what it is. So, as the video said, 9 children drop out of school every day. We assume that those are kids who are present hedonistic, whose lives don't mesh with school, which is future-oriented. Combating all addictions are addictions of the present hedonism. Greed in business. How do you get businessmen who should be, businesswomen who should be prudent and future-oriented, not to give in to risky short-term decisions? One of the problems we're facing with around the world is the need for conservation of resources, of sustainability. It means being sensitive to the problems of global climate change and doing something about it now rather than waiting for an uncertain future. And again, I've had many major surgeries on me. I have 3 hip replacements, knee surgery, a carpal tunnel. And what happens is, in order to recover, you have to do extensive physical rehab. Research shows that half of all the people who start physical rehab after any surgery stop. And if you stop, you don't get well. And you can develop, even for example, you can develop problems that make it even worse than it was earlier. And I assume that the people who don't do it are people who are past-oriented or present-oriented. And how do we get them to be more future-oriented? So there is, you want to promote social support, that you want to promote people in the family doing the exercise with their children or with their parents. So the optimal temporal mix, and we're almost finished, is the past gives you roots to connect your identity, your family, to be grounded. So we have to have some positive past. What we get from the future gives you wings to soar to new destinations, new challenges, to take risks. What we get from the present is energy to explore people, to explore places, explore yourself, to explore your sensuality. And so the optimal profile, we think, is high on past positive, moderately high on future, moderate on present hedonism, but it's selected, self-rewarding present hedonism, not impulsive. Negative past, present fatalism, low as much as you can. So at work, time is the most important thing in the world. Work is all about time. At home, it's the most precious, and therefore the most valued. So I want to end my presentation by saying, I think many of life's puzzles can be solved by understanding your time perspective and the time perspective of people around you. A lot of our conflict is not understanding that everybody doesn't see the world the way you do. So if you're future-oriented, you can't understand that some people are doing things impulsively. This is often a generational problem. If you have future-oriented parents with kids who tend to be more present-oriented, they seem to be stupid or silly. If you're future-oriented, present-oriented, people think you're a nerd, you're a workaholic. So the point is, when you understand your own time perspective, and ideally you give people in your family, your friends, our scale to see them, and then you understand some of these things I've been saying, I think you become more tolerant, more understanding, more compassionate. The idea is really simple, but I think the consequences are profound. So I want to thank you for your attention. I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope the technology works and you actually get to see it. So think time wisely, think time profoundly, and think time deeply. And I want to end with, always make time for friends, for family, for fun, and for yourself. So that however future-oriented or however pressed, you can always take time out of time for friends, family, fun, and to enjoy life fully, because we only go around once. Make that time count. Thanks. Goodbye, Phil Zimbardo.